My name is Leah Pretorius. It's an honor to be here today. I appreciate you guys sticking through to the end, like I said. I am a software engineer in test for OC Tanner. I have been working in quality assurance for, well, I'm going to say most of my life, actually, but officially in software world for, maybe 10 years in one role or another. I didn't realize it until I actually started coding and realized that software engineer testing was a specific thing to it. And then I realized at that point, well, I've been doing this all the while because I don't want garbage to go out the door anyway. So what was exciting for me is that we could automate this because I'm really not a huge fan of doing the same thing over and over again in manual testing. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is functional quality. This will probably be the least techy thing you've heard all day, which I think hopefully is nice since you've probably got a lot swimming through your head already. So just sit back and relax. So my background for over 20 years is business and marketing in print and digital media. I, at one point, was the digital product manager for the largest media company in the state at that time. I had 53 products under my purview. Still wasn't actually coding at that time just yet. And then I decided that I wanted a hard skill and also to understand my coders better. Went and learned how to code, liked it way better, and I converted. I'm currently also an adjunct instructor at the community college. I teach digital media and web programming, both front-end and back-end. And I am a fellow member of the human race, and that's relevant, and we'll get into that here in a minute why. So we don't have a lot of time, just jump right in here and ask the question, who owns quality? Well, the answer's right there, actually. We all do. We all own quality from start to finish. Doesn't matter who you are, what role you play in the company, whether you're the janitor, whether you're the front end, the back end, the QA person, every single person owns quality. It's not just the quality team, if you even happen to have one of those, because a lot of small businesses don't. So I want to just clarify here that QA no longer means quality assurance, at least not here, not in software. It means quality advisors, because we all own it, right? So what needs to be tested at what stage and what doesn't need to be and who should do it. One person can't do everything. So we don't want to lob things over the fence. We want to own it. And so your QA person is there to assist you in achieving quality. In this mission, it's critically important to remember that your end users are actual real people, right? So I say I'm a fellow member of the human race. If we care about people, then we care about their experience. And that doesn't mean just external users. That means also internal users. For instance, here at OC Tanner, we develop software that our business people use to accomplish the tasks that they have to do in a day. Those people are just as important as anybody else. So a QA, wait, go back. So a QA, we aim to create a better experience for everybody, to not frustrate people, right? I care about the end user's experience because I also care about my experience. I don't like to use something that's not functioning well or is frustrating or doesn't make any sense. So in doing that, we do a few things. We protect the end user experience, we protect the brand, and in a roundabout way, we also give ourselves some job security there, right? Just by doing the right thing in the first place and not putting garbage out there or doing it as fast as we can and leaving quality aside. There we go. So what's the big goal here? So the big goal is continuous integration. So one of the buzzwords right now, and I'm not a huge buzzword fan, but I think this one's actually pretty relevant, is fail fast and fail often. In continuous integration, we are constantly committing code, right? We're also constantly writing code to test the code. That gives us better quality of code that we're delivering. We're testing in small segments. We're testing fast. We're committing fast. It gives us speed to market because there's something in there. It minimizes manual processes, especially for the actual deployments and planned release nights when we all get to stay late and eventually get home to our families after dinner's done. And it moves us towards continuous deployment. I put that down in there because I feel like let's take one step at a time here. Let's get to continuous integration, and then we can get comfortable with continuous deployment, but it's not far behind. So living the dream. There's no CI without quality testing on every level. You can't achieve it, right? So what are those levels? And the nice thing is that we're starting to understand from a testing standpoint that this is the way that the pyramid goes. It's not inverted anymore like it used to be. So the bulk of our testing is unit tests. And I trust that, or I assume that most of you or all of you know what we're talking about here with unit tests. Because that's mostly what I'm seeing from the front-end developers is this unit test and integration test level, which is awesome. Those have to be there. You commit your code, little tiny pieces, at least daily. Maybe I've heard from companies where they're doing it hourly even. And it automatically, these tests automatically kick off and start validating what you did. And you find your errors quick, right? Failing is okay. Getting errors is fine. Let's find them fast and let's deal with them before we build on top of them and waste even more time. Then we have our component tests, those things that can sort of stand on their own, right? And then we get upper in the period to the user interface, end-to-end testing, functional. Kind of, that's all getting called the same thing. So I put all of them in there because it's really pretty much the same thing. And then way at the top here, we have our eyeballs, should be our manual testing, but notice that that's a small part of it. If we're doing continuous integration well, then we're limiting that manual testing, which I personally don't think you can actually totally eliminate, but we're boiling it down to exploratory testing, which is great. Just to define functional tests here so we're on the same page, it's concerned with functional requirements of a system or a subsystem and how well it executes its functions, including user commands, data manipulation, searches, business processes, user screens, and integrations. That's kind of a lot of words, but here's where we kind of boil it down here. So as front-end developers, which many or most or even all of you are, why does this really matter to you? Because I haven't seen a lot that actually fully understand it, because this seems like the back end is where we're talking about this more, back-end programming. What users really care about is they care about having a positive experience with your software, right? They don't want to get frustrated with the flow when they click on something and they expect something, that they get it. They don't really care about all that stuff at the bottom of the pyramid, which we know is super important. What they care about is the top of the pyramid. That's the experience that they're having. And this is why functional test is important. And you'll notice it's a smaller segment of the pyramid, so we have to be very targeted and smart about which ones we put in there and effective about it. So functional test verified code is ready for deployment in the context of the whole ecosystem, which is not something that other testing does. So for instance, so what if an element appears, right? The DOM sees it, right? Do eyeballs see it? Is there something in front of it? Can you actually click on it? What does it do when you click on it? These are questions that functional testing will help answer. Because I have seen in tests where the element gets found, but you can't actually see it. And there's other scenarios where that kind of thing can happen when you're short on time. It verifies that the software works as intended and meets the functional requirements, like those requirements are given to us. Did we meet those? So of course that's important, because that's business needs. It more closely simulates user interaction. This is what's really important, because again, we're humans and we're dealing with humans. We're servicing humans. And what happens when an actual human interacts with it? It's not always the same as when your headless browser interacts with it or whatever. So there's no utopia, right? The continuous integration without the full pyramid of testing, because in continuous integration, we're constantly committing, we're constantly testing, and if everything goes through all the sandboxes and all the tests get kicked off along the way, by the end of it, we feel like we can just deploy this right now, right? So we're constantly improving our software instead of doing that once a week, once every 3 weeks, some people once a quarter, deployments. We're being much more responsive to the marketplace. And good functional tests for the reduced manual testing needs. For exploratory and edge case testing, which is where you kind of you've still got your manual that you need. Good candidates for functional testing from a front-end perspective, and this is just minimal, right? This is so critical. I always ask myself, could this potentially affect the bottom line? Like, if money is involved here, if somebody can't place an order or achieve something business critical, then that's an excellent candidate for automated functional testing. In fact, I don't want it to go into production without that. So my first question is, are dollars involved here? The next thing to consider, and it really actually relates to the first, is key clients. Sometimes it's not the majority of your users who are using a particular feature, but it's one of your most key customers that you maybe one of your bread and butter accounts. So it's important to keep those in mind and to know who they are. This is where having robust conversations with your product managers is important. Anything that could prevent internal users from carrying out the most important functions of their jobs. So if our billing people can't get the invoices out, or our customer service people can't give an answer to a basic question to a customer on the phone, that's a bad experience for both them and our external users. So we want to keep that in mind too for those of us who are using our software internally as well. When data is provided from another source, I'd say take this into consideration. Does this need functional testing? Because it's one thing to check that the element's on the page. It's a whole nother thing to see that we got the information back that we expect. And when we're dealing with more microservices these days and APIs, this becomes more and more relevant. That said, so does the component level and integration level testing become extremely relevant. So your functional side is less likely to break if that part is robust when it comes to your microservices, but still something to really think about. And any elements or functions that are particularly susceptible to quirks. And I hate to admit that those exist, but we have cross-browser differences sometimes, and we know certain versions of certain browsers might do funky things with it. We know that there's certain areas of our software sometimes that are maybe legacy and a little more brittle, and I would call that a quirk and something that we need to look at writing functional tests for, or engaging our QA people to help us write it or to write it for us. However it gets done, the point is that they need to be there. I'm going way faster than I thought I would, so you guys might get out early today, but I'm also happy to answer any questions you have. So just if you're curious from a functional testing standpoint, the tools that we're using are Selenium WebDriver, Capybara. We happen to be using Ruby and RSpec, but obviously, Java and these other languages that you can use for your frameworks. We use Sauce Labs for cross-browser testing. And the most important thing that we have and that we use is ongoing collaboration. We try hard to stick to our agile process and have ongoing conversations. We prefer the communications, the live communications. We do the retrospects, talk about what we like, what we could do better moving forward, and that also informs our testing as well. So that's really it. That's what I wanted to impart to you today, that the unit testing and the integration testing that's being done with the front-end languages is extremely important, especially towards the goal of continuous integration. But that functional piece, it's very important for that to be there too. And if I had more time, we'd dive deeper into how do we do that? But I feel like that's way over 25 minutes. So are there any questions? I'm with dev. Yeah, I'm an embedded unit with my team. I'm at all their stand-ups, paying attention to the new features that are coming up, which ones do we need to have tests written for. We use Jira. I'll go in and I will add testing subtasks to the various things that I think that we need functional testing for. Totally open to the input of the developers on the team, and they might disagree, so that's a fair conversation to have. And just because that subtask ticket is there doesn't mean that necessarily I'm the one who has to do it. I'm definitely going to try to get to it if I can, because I want to free them up to do the unit testing and integration testing and code as much as possible. But again, we all share quality. And that's one of the things that I really like about how OC Tanner does, how they look at quality in this company with the developers. I've been in places where the responsibility of quality was quality assurance person, and I got that whole lobbing over the fence thing. I think Michael Wang might know what I'm talking about. So it was not so bad when I was working with senior developers, right? But when I was working with juniors or those that are maybe fresh out of code camps and stuff, it was pretty painful. I worked some super late nights. But here, they've put that responsibility onto, well, the final responsibility, right? Because again, I feel like we all own it. But they've put it onto the developers themselves. And so the developers are very motivated to put out good content and not just rely on their QA person to find any errors that might be there and then be mad at them if they don't get caught, To that end, I still take a lot of pride in quality, and I do it in my work and I do it outside of my work. So I don't feel any less motivated to help our team achieve that. I feel like it's just balanced it out more. So we're all working together to achieve that goal. Anybody else?
So I've tried some of this stuff before, and I've had bad luck with some tooling that is just not really stable, not really consistent about how it tests. Like I think a lot of people here probably have problems with like PhantomJS inexplicably just like
Isn't that why it's called Phantom?
So what are some of the best tools for specifically JavaScript functional testing, and like what stack do you use these days?
So that was the little toolkit slide that I have there. So there's, on the unit test and integration test level, I'm not writing those tests, but what I know of the people who I work with here, I'm seeing coffee, chai, mocha. I'm not sure how much we use PhantomJS, actually. Excellent.
Testing, mocha chai, unit testing, pretty much any of the mocha stuff, like where we get running, doesn't really matter what flavor you use. And then for some of the integration tests, we use Phantom. We wanted to write our own library, and then about a month later, Casper came out, so it's like, well, we have that now. So that makes it a little bit easier to use, but Phantom's tough because you're returning from an execution context, you still have to return out of that. So it's like this double layer, and the timings get weird. So it's really tricky if you don't have like a fully developed library or you're not familiar using it. It's tough. But yeah, that's essentially what we use for the integration testing. We've used JS DOM as well. You just need to stub out the DOM selectors and stuff. You don't need a whole Phantom spun up. You can just say, here's fake the DOM, give me a few elements of testing, make sure they're there. Make sure your code's working. So those are kind of what we use on the front end.
Yeah. And then from the back-end perspective, obviously, we end up touching the front end too. So that's where we've got Selenium, Capybara sitting on top of that, and RSpec and Ruby. It's uniquely challenging, particularly with React. And I'm still doing my homework on how to get it to respond consistently to me when I want it. Angular wasn't too bad. I was thinking, grab those tags, right? And usually anything with an ID or I can walk to with XPath is fine. But React is a little different, so I'm still figuring that one out right now. Anyone else?
Have you tried just snapshot testing?
Just?
Yeah.
I have not.
So that's really how that's probably one of the best ways to test React, is you can snapshot what you expect it to be. So you basically write it out, and then you convert that to JSON, and then Jess will test that JSON if it exports correctly.
Thank you. That's lovely. I saw a little bit about that. I hadn't dug into it all the way yet, so I appreciate that feedback.
Like their snapshot testing is really like super new. So
That's why there wasn't a lot. Okay. Jest. Awesome. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you so much for attending the entire event. We appreciate you. Thank you.